Hello, it's a second line day. We're in gate 62, the gate of detail, and this is the second line called restraint. These are people who don't know that they have a gift for detail. It's the second line. Even when they're called out for their detail, it can be really hard for them to see it. In the exaltation, we have the innate restrictiveness and discipline to comply with and exalt restraint. The discipline necessary for detailed work, which doesn't mean they ever actually do any detailed work in their whole lives. If you ask them if they notice something, then they're great and they can tell you about it right away. But what they're not going to tell you is they're not really going to work with it. They're not even going to pay attention to that thing that you're asking them the detail for. It's just that they took it in at some point and the detail is there and they can tell you what it is. They can end up being order freaks, actually. If you go into the environment of a 62, everything has to be in order. There has to be a place for things, which does not mean that it will be obsessively tidy. It can be absolute chaos, but they know exactly where everything is within that chaos. So for someone to come in and tidy up the desk of a 62 is a nightmare, because all of a sudden you don't know where everything is anymore. I have a 62 too. This is my Earth. So my sun is in the 61 too. So there is a bit of chaos in here, I have to say, but I do know where things are. If Bear was to come in and ask me, I could put my hand on it really easily. So it could be obsessively tidy or obsessively orderly, and it doesn't matter. That's not the point, because it's just everything has its place within that chaos or order. 62 twos, when they're on their own, they're living in this sort of ordered, detailed environment where their space is detailed. But in order to get the advantage of their collective gift, their ability to be able to describe things logically, you have to knock on the door. You have to distract them. If you have a child with the 62 too, then they can have an incredible discipline for the detail. Once you open up the opportunity for them, of course, and you encourage them. In the detriment, it says the intellect, stymied by severe restraints, tends to anxiety and restlessness. The expression of anxiety and restlessness when faced with detailed work. So these are the second lines who have natural detail in their lives, but when you call them out and ask them for the detail, they're uncomfortable. Leave me alone, they say. This is the mantra for so many second lines. Leave me alone. The second line people are often caught in a trap. All second lines carry with them the potential to be a paper tiger. That is, they project something out that they don't actually have. They can't actually do it. And it's not their fault. It's the mechanic of being a second line. Second lines are not introspective. They don't have this ability to look within. The first line, they know they can do the detailed work. That's why it gets bored. It has the capacity to do the detailed work, and it really has to get into that detail. But the second line, it's just projecting it out. It's like a child that is sitting in class and studying, focused on what it's doing, focused on doing the detail, but actually that's just a projection. They're projecting out that they're doing the detail. It looks like they're doing the detail, which does not mean that they really are. Just the field of energy that they are projecting out. And so, of course, then the teacher can come up to them, and this is when the paper tiger collapses, because the teacher will say, okay, let's see the detail that you've been working on. And then the child has got that sort of anxiety then that's going to come, oh, I haven't finished it yet, I didn't get to that bit yet. And so that projected field, it's not necessarily the truth. It's a projection. The child is not necessarily working on the detail. As a 6-2 or even a 62-2, you could be sitting with a book, looking like you're absolutely immersed in this book, deeply focused, concentrating, taking every word in. And somebody asks you what you're reading, and you can't answer because you weren't actually really focused on the detail there. And so you could become restless or anxious around that projection. Both the abstract and logic process are about successful communication. Only when somebody can properly communicate their story or their theoretical premise or opinion, only then do they have the opportunity that others may call out. That's what it's all about there. These are collective gates, after all. In collective circuitry, we have no specific social channels. There's one individual social channel and two tribal ones, but the collective by its very nature is social. So every collective aspect inside of you wants and needs to share and be sociable. So we have a grounding here in the 61 line too, the natural brilliance. This is a mind that can be deeply nourishing. It can bring that a really nourishing influence, or not, of course. We have to always have our binary, but it's a potentially an attractive force. And whilst it's also a second line and doesn't want to be bothered, it can ground the restraint in gate 62 just with its nourishing influence, helping to organize the detail with its natural brilliance, so that when someone says, show me the detail, it's there in the moment through this individual earth gate. The moon is still journeying around the splenic center, currently in gate 57, and it's only just gone in there, so we have that energy for the day, although we looked at it yesterday. Moves into gate 32 at 21:15. This is the gate of duration, the gate of continuity, tribal. And we learn that the only thing that endures is change. You know, this gate has an innate ability to recognize things that have a lasting value for the material direction and survival of one's tribal community. And these people, they can make a valuable contribution to maintaining the stability of that community structure. And there can be a potential for internal conflict regarding the need for progress and its inherent risks on one side versus the need for the security of the status quo on the other. And then gate 50 at 8:36 tomorrow morning. This is the gate of values, the cauldron. This is the value of historical continuity. So this is rather lovely again, that the gate of continuity leads into the value of historical continuity. And it's another ego, just a tribal gate, gate 50. And of course it's splenic again, because we're on that splenic journey. And this is where we find traditional values that will serve and enrich the present and the future. And there's ability here to recognize laws and values that are outmoded now, that have no value anymore. And they can detect corruption, which may compromise the community's integrity, perhaps leading to responsibility and challenging those whose laws no longer benefit the interests of the community. As with all splenic gates, there is a fear here in gate 50, and it is the fear of responsibility, taking on too much responsibility, getting lost within the responsibility for others. So that's us for today. Thank you very much for watching. I don't think I was got a feeling I was going to say something else, and it's completely gone. So go gently, and I will see you again tomorrow.